Let me state at this point that none of the candidates who are appearing here today or their party members have seen any of the questions we are going to be asking them. The audience here in this auditorium has also agreed to remain silent. No cheering, no jeering. That way, this debate will achieve its purpose. But the exception to that rule is now as I introduce the candidates in alphabetical order using their party acronyms. The candidate of the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, ACPN, Ganiyu Galadima. The candidate of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Yemi Osinbajo. The candidate of the Alliance for New Nigeria, ANN, Khadija Abdullahi Iya. The candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Peter Obi. And the candidate of the Young Progressives Party, YPP, Umar Gesso. Now that we have the full complement of all the candidates, could we please rise for the national anthem? Thank you. This debate is streamed on all our online platforms. You can join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag 2019debate. Hashtag 2019debate. All right. I've just a while ago been handed the questions. You can see the candidates sealed. None of you have seen them. None of your party members have seen any of these questions. So we shall proceed to open the envelope. And we shall begin the debate. First, we need each of the candidates to have an opening statement of 3 minutes each. And we begin with the candidate of the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, ACPN. The 3 minutes begins now.
Fellow candidates, the moderator, distinguished audience, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want to give glory to God for giving us the opportunity to be here today. And my sincere gratitude also goes to the NEDG for giving us the opportunity to speak to Nigerians. This is not the first opportunity of my party to face Nigerians in a presidential contest. In 2015, we participated equally in NDG debate for presidential candidates, even though then I was a presidential candidate. But between 2015 and now, I think we have recorded little or no improvement in governance. And the life of people is becoming the worse for it, making Nigeria to be tagged the capital of poverty in the world, which is very disheartening. So I want to say that we cannot continue to do the same thing the same way and be expecting different results. There's need for Nigerians to look at the candidates and their manifestos before they can cast their vote. Nigerians are the worst for it, and the GDP of the country is becoming lower and lower, The bane of this is that unemployment is becoming higher and higher, and this is because of the wrong policy of the government. In 2015, what we were told by the APC was that the subsidy was a fraud. As it is today, the Nigerian government is subsidizing petroleum product, PMS, to the tune of 2 billion naira daily. 2 billion naira daily. If you calculate 2 billion naira, approximately 2 billion naira daily times 30 days, it's too staggering. That is to say that we are subsidizing inefficiency. We are subsidizing the rich. And funds that are hitherto are supposed to go into development, into infrastructure, and to build other sectors of the economy are being frittered away. Is the reason why in 2019?
Thank you very much. It's now the turn of the candidate of the Alliance for New Nigeria, AAN, Khadija Abdullahi Iyan.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, fellow candidates. My name is Khadija Abdullahi Iyan. I am a nation builder, a lawyer, and a social entrepreneur. I was born 44 years ago into the family of Elijah Audu Kwengila. I was born in Kaduna, grew up in Lagos, and came back to the north. I studied law from the University of Abuja and had my master's degree from the University of Jos. I gained my experiences from the legal practice, banking and finance, and media. I founded SI Magazine Limited, which is focused on humanitarian journalism and social development. Before SI Magazine in 2006, I founded an NGO called Beyond Mentors Community Care Initiative, which is devoted to women and children, promoting women empowerment policies, encouraging literacy at the grassroots, and cultivating the spirit of patriotism. I am passionate about women, particularly passionate about the plight of children. That's why most of my programs are focused and targeted at the children and youth. I believe that we should all be concerned about the plight of children in Nigeria. And that is basically securing our future, the future of our children, our future. I am vying for the office of Vice President of Nigeria because I am concerned about every one of the over 2.1 million children in the Northeast and the IDP camps, which are scattered across Nigeria. I am also concerned about the 13 million children who are out of school. I am, as a wife and a mother of 7, I am committed to using every resource of authority at my disposal to ensure that every child, every young person, every mother, and every father gets the opportunities that they deserve in their pursuit of happiness. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for keeping within your time frame. The candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, your opening statement.
Thank you very much.
$7 million and growing 6% every minute. Our country today has the highest number of out-of-school children in the world. Our HDI has dropped from 152 to 157. Our global competitive index has dropped from 124 to 127. In terrorism, we have moved from 7 to number 3, just behind Iran and Afghanistan. Our inequality have worsened. Our misery index have worsened. Our stress index, we are now 148 over 149. If you look at all this, it's hinged on two things from studies, and that is on education and unemployment. Our unemployment has moved from 24, as you know, to 40 today. The more you can invest in education, the better your economy. That shows we're not investing in education. In issue of unemployment, which has worsened, we have millions of our children out of school. And you can see from a study that there's a straight link between SMEs and growing your economy. And we're not supporting on SMEs very well. If you look at what China has been able to do with the SMEs, SME in China is contributing 60% of their GDP. And 60% of China GDP is 7.2 trillion, which is 18% of Nigerian GDP. They are contributing 60% of the employment. On urban employment, they are contributing 80%. 80% of urban unemployment in China is 480. 80% of that is 380, which is twice Nigerian economy. China today, using the same SME, is guaranteeing 10 million jobs annually. This year alone, half of this year, China have produced 7.2 million jobs, which is over 40% of their target. Within the same period, Nigeria lost 44 million jobs. So we need to re-geek this and have a better focus on how we can create jobs. As long as we don't create jobs and have the number of unemployed youths in their productive age that we have today, we're going to have crisis. That's why we have issue of insecurity, issue of instability. All sorts of things we're witnessing today is because we have not been able to create jobs that other countries are creating with effortless ease. And I know that Atiku Abubakar Obi presidency can produce jobs, which is the most critical
to today. Thank you very much. Thank you. Candidate of the Young Progressives Party, YPP, Umar Gesso.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, Bon. Thank you, channels, and all the organizers of this wonderful and memorable event. My name is Umar Abdullahi Gesso from Kano State, daughter of a former senator in Kano State and a person that's grown and brought up into a political home. I have a passion for the girl-child education, and I spent the early years of my adulthood in the development of a common Nigerian. I was the pioneer member, founder of Falala Women Multipurpose Cooperative Society in Bauchi, which has impacted the lives of a lot of rural women in Bauchi. And I later on founded Youth Enlightenment Initiative of Nigeria, which up to now we are empowering young men and women in the country. I later on joined the political system, which I co-founded New Progressive Movement, a party that intends to create a kind of avenue where the youth can just run what they have politically. And now, as a member, as a running mate of Professor Kingsley Moghalu, I want to use this opportunity to thank the organizers of this event. And my presidential candidate is a person that has a lot to offer to Nigeria, because if you compare him with the choices we have, we can see that Professor Kingsley Moghalu is among the best because he has experience in all sectors of the economy, which is the main problem we're having today in Nigeria. And I, as Umar Gesso, felt that I should join this race because I am a passionate Nigerian. I so much believe in Nigeria working again. And as a mother of three, as a wife, as a normal person, I've been to the lowest level of Nigerian standard of living. And I know how Nigerians are suffering. I know that there is not substantial thing from 1999 to date that a typical Nigerian will show today and say, yes, I am proud of my country. So to be candid, YPP is a party that is here to give a new thing. It's a party that's founded with a new ideology to bring in the paradigm shift, a bunch of kind of new set of politicians, new set of people, because we cannot deal with people that destroy our past to come and to expect them to come and improve our future tomorrow. So we are trying, we in our party, we have a lot of support from the youth, and because we all know that the youth are the future of tomorrow. So in my party, we so much believe in the new Nigeria, a Nigeria where every Nigerian will have an equal right and will have a story to tell tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all of you. Well, we'll go on a very short break, and when we return, we will be meeting our candidates on their ambitions. Stay with us. Candidate of the ACPN. The office of the vice president is often seen as that of a spare tire role to the office of the president. Do you think the office needs more responsibilities, or is okay as it is defined in the Constitution, the Nigerian 1999 Constitution as amended?
I have not seen the office of the vice president as a spare tire, because it is the same constitution, it's the same qualification that the president of a country, of our country, must have, that the vice president must have. And besides, roles were specified for both the president and the vice president. And don't forget, if the president is not around, it is the vice president that took over. And I want to tell you, to know how important the office of the president is, that it is not inferior to the presidency, is that the vice president of our country takes any decision as acting president. The president of a country cannot legally go against that action. I remember when our president was away for some time, the vice president acted, and all decisions that were taken by him as acting president of this country were never controverted by the president. So the vice president of this country is just like the office of the president. They have the same status, although one is higher, but none is inferior to the other.
Thank you very much. Candidate of the ANN. Should you win this forthcoming election, you will be the first female vice president of Nigeria. How prepared are you for that role and the responsibilities that come with it?
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Being a nation builder sticks from the heart. Somebody that builds a human being that starts from the human development. So having to take the position of a vice president is not something that should be taken lightly, because a nation builder is that person who sees a problem and resolves it. Our party is well known for what it stands for. We're not talking about, we're not the politicians of the usual days that promises this and that. So what we are going to do is to ensure that every policies that have been taken collectively as a party will be implemented effectively. We have shared values, we understand what the policies are, we understand what the issues are, which issues who goes to the root of humanity. That is what we stand for. We stand for humanity and community development. So being a vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is an office which must be taken seriously. It's an office which participates in all the cabinet meetings at office, which is about the economic development of, which handles the issues of economy. So what we are trying to do in our party is to ensure that the economy is diversified, the economy is vibrant enough to stop the too much dependency on a mono economy that we were used to ensure that every aspect of the 774 local governments that we have in Nigeria is upgraded to a commercial hub where every resource, every mineral resources would be enhanced and upgraded, where we would ensure that the issue of unemployment and every other issue that affects the economy right now will be well taken care of. So it is not an office that should be taken for granted. And as I stand, because of my background in humanitarian services and issues, and as a mother, we're used to a country who put politics before economics. In our party, we are putting economics before politics because economics is the driving force. We're doing agriculture. We're talking about the diversification of agriculture, which this administration has already been doing. But what we'll do is much more than what this administration is doing. Thank you
very much. Thank you. Candidate of the APC, you have been vice president for the past 3.5 years, almost 3.5 years. How tasking has this role and responsibility been for you?
Thank you very much. First, I'm sure that those who know me quite well know that my hair was not this gray when I started out in 2015. So really, it has been tasking. It has been tasking, but it has also been an incredibly rewarding experience, especially from the point of view of the ability to do the things that one wanted to do all along as an individual. But the role is one where you are, in many senses, the chief advisor to the president of the country, and possibly the one person that will represent him, even just when he's absent for a meeting, as opposed to even when he's absent for longer periods. So there is a sense in which the role of the vice president is one that very closely mirrors the role of the president in very profound ways. But our vice presidency is different from the vice presidency of other countries because unlike other countries, even countries that have similar constitutions, our own constitution actually specifies roles for the vice president. So the vice president is the chairman of the National Economic Council. That is the council that's a council where all of the governors of the states meet every once in a month, and the vice president chairs that. That's a constitutional role. Aside from that, the vice president is also the chairman of the NCP. That's the National Council on Privatization. The vice president is also statutory chairman of about 22 different parastatals and agencies. And these are all defined by law. So in some senses, I mean, those who say, for example, that the vice presidential, or the role of the vice president is a spare tire, have it wrong because they probably are looking at other jurisdictions. In our jurisdiction, there are very specific roles that the vice president is entitled or is empowered by law to perform. But I think that one of the more interesting things about that role also is the fact that still a lot depends on the trust that exists between the president and the vice president, because the president does delegate several of his roles, and he can delegate those roles depending, of course, on how on the kind of trust that exists between both parties. So many times also that role is one where a good degree of trust is required between the two players, namely the president and the vice president. Where that trust exists, I think there is plenty of room for activity for the vice president. There's plenty that the vice president can do. And finally, I think that the role of the vice president, is one which also requires, I think a great deal of patience, because you may not always agree, you may not always agree with policy, you may not always agree with all the various aspects of what is being done. You may not always agree. Thank you
very much. Thank you. Time is up. Candidate of the PDP. Now, we have seen vice presidents fall out with their principals. Now, should this happen to you if you win the forthcoming election, how would you handle it?
Well, I assure you that won't be the case. Because like it's clearly stated, the vice president have a role, and the role of the vice president, to me, is most critical role, because we're talking about the economy of this country. The main problem of this country today is its economy. Economy is on the knees. And because it's not working, it's not creating jobs, it's not doing anything, the vice president is in charge of rigging this economy and rebuilding it to where you can create jobs, to where you can be able to ensure that there's financing in various areas of our government. The vice president is in charge of, for example, debt management. Today we have virtually at a level where our debt is unsustainable because we are using over 50% of our revenues to service debt, which means we don't even have enough to be able to do infrastructural projects that is highly needed in this country. Today, your country is owing about $22.7 trillion, $80 billion. And we need to do more, and you can't even find the money to do it. So the vice president office is critical. That you're not today part of G20, you're not part of BRICS nation, even the Mint nation where you are, is because you have a poor economy. Because if you look at the BRICS nations, every other government there, Mexico has a GDP of over 1 trillion and per capita of over 8,000. Turkey that is there has a GDP of 800 billion and per capita of over 10,000. Indonesia has, and your own is low. So the vice president has a role to build the economy, to create jobs, to be able to make the country work. So it's a critical role. In falling out with the president, if you're doing the right thing, you can't fall out with anybody. I can assure you of that. If you continue to do the right thing, because the vice president who chose you for a reason. He knows that you have something to deliver. So you're not there. You're there to be loyal to him and serve Nigeria faithfully. So I don't see where there's a problem. I can tell you I've never had any issue with anybody in government, and it won't start with this, because we will together start making Nigeria work again.
Thank you very much. Candidate of the Young Progressives Party. We run a presidential system of government which concentrates a lot of power in the office of the president. In a situation where you have a principal who hardly relinquishes power and authority, even when the Constitution mandates him or her to do so, how do you deal with such a situation?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Let me start from the platform we're on. In Young Progressive Party, I think there's no any other party in Nigeria that has given priority to women, because most of the offices we have, even in the national level, are always, these are the woman is up and the man is deputizing, or the man is up and the woman is deputizing. Professor Kingsley Moghalu's presidency is about giving 50-50 opportunity to women to participate in his government in all levels of office, in all offices. So I don't think there's any presidential candidate who came up openly without any reservation to make this public. And I'm very, very sure him making this public, he really means business. And I don't think at this level he will reverse it. That 50-50 gender equity is almost the priority in whatever we're doing in YPP and Moghalu's presidential candidacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me say at this point in time that the next round of questions, you have 2 minutes each to answer the questions, and you have 1 minute of rebuttal if you do have anything to contribute to that question. Now, let me begin with the YPP, this end. It is said that about half of the Nigerian population lives in extreme poverty, which invariably gives us a sad appellation of the poverty capital of the world. How would you reverse this situation if you are elected Vice President of Nigeria?
Well, this question is taking us back to job creation and economy. Economy is the backbone of each and every country, we all know that. And the economy of Nigeria, as we all know, it's not giving us what we are expecting. So economy alone can never be over-exaggerated, because an economy constitutes of the constitutional restructuring, healthcare, security, education, youth empowerment, employment opportunities, or job creation. Let's take the constitutional restructuring. As Professor Kingsley Moghalu has in his own plan to restructure Nigeria, but constitutional restructuring, because I know everybody today is busy talking about restructuring, but we are talking of the real constitutional restructuring, whereby the central will, as it distribute power down to the 6 geopolitical zones and give them opportunity to test run and to own the resources they produce and control them. This is a very, very major thing that will bring back our economy into life and create jobs. And the second thing is power. If at all today in Nigeria we are able to decentralize the grid and distribute power and to make a grid in all the 6 geopolitical zones, there will be job creation. There will be enough power, or 24 uninterrupted power supply, and solving power issues alone can solve 70 or 80% of Nigerian problem, because power is what is holding us back today. If at all in South Africa they have only 75 million population and they are producing 50 something. Okay,
thank you very much. Candidate of the PDP. Now, closely related to that question is the fact that the aggregate investment in Nigeria in 2018 is put at about $60.8 billion, only 13.6% of our GDP. It has never gone above 16% in the last 10 years. Now, why have we failed so woefully? And what are you going to do differently as a government?
If you look at our economy, aggregate investment is not where I'm going to look. But now look at the shallowness of the economy, starting from everything. If you look at, let me just use one thing, your capital market. Your capital market today is only $30 billion. It just lost $2 trillion anyway, about almost $8 billion in the past 1 year. But look at it. South Africa is $900 billion, the second economy in Africa. That shows the shallowness of your economy, because what you're doing is that you have a government that is trying to do what it's not supposed to do. The role of government is supervision and create the support and the guarantees that will enable private sector to drive the economy. So that investment needs to triple, because it's even low compared with that's why your size of your economy is very shallow. So for us, and that is why it's not creating jobs. That's why you have the level of unemployment you have today. So if you're talking about how to drive up the investment, if you look at everything that's been done, is that you need to look at the overall economy, regig it properly, where the private sector will drive the economy, there will be more investment. A lot will happen. Your banks today, all the loans they're giving is about 15% of your GDP. When other countries are doing 50, 100%, China alone is doing 250% of their GDP as credits to businesses, to private sector. And you can see why you have better investment in other nations than Nigeria.
Thank you very much, candidate of the All Progressives Congress. Whereas in 2018, Nigeria had an aggregate investment of $60.8 billion. A country like China has an aggregate investment of $5 trillion, which is about 41% of its GDP. South Africa, here in Africa, has a $65 billion aggregate investment, which is about 18.56% of its GDP. But in the last 10 years, Nigeria has not risen beyond 16%. What is the problem and how can it be tackled?
I think the common the common denominator of the countries you've mentioned, both China and South Africa, is strong infrastructure. Our country, over the past 16 years, has suffered a major infrastructure deficit. So we don't have rail, we don't have roads, power. When we came into office in 2015, power was at 4,000 megahertz. That is 16 years, in 16 years. So you need strong infrastructure. And nobody can make excuses about that. You've got to have strong infrastructure, which is one of the major focuses of our administration's policies, in putting in place the right infrastructure. The second thing is that you cannot have a thriving economy if you allow the type of grand corruption that has taken place in Nigeria in the past 16 years. I've heard one of the candidates say that fighting corruption is not an economic policy. With all due respect, if you don't have resources, if you don't have money, if the resources have been stolen, then you cannot possibly even generate jobs. You can't even build infrastructure. In the past 3 years, the government of President Muhammadu Buhari has spent 2.7 trillion on capital in Nigeria. That is the highest ever in the history of Nigeria, despite earning 60% less than the previous government. We have currently spent 2.7 trillion in 2 budget cycles, and we're earning 60% less. When oil was at $100 to $114 a barrel, no infrastructure was built. Today, oil is at sub-60. When we came into office, it was $28, going on to $30. Yet, we spent more on capital and on infrastructure. The second thing is that you must have poverty if you don't have a social investment scheme. I've heard some mention already about countries like India, like Mexico, like Brazil. These are countries that had a social investment policy. And that's the sort of thing we have also.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Right. Candidate of the Alliance for New Nigeria. Now, Nigeria's misery index is currently put at 51.26%, which is a combination of the sum of its unemployment and underemployment. Even when you use the old data and the current level of inflation. Now, what are you going to do to address this perennial and growing problem of misery and hopefully restore hope to the Nigerian common man?
Because of the policies we have with ANN, Alliance for New Nigeria, poverty has become endemic in every aspect. And despite what is, with due respect, His Excellency Vice President Osibajo have said, for all the efforts that the government has put in, we are doing a complete overhaul. Most problems that we have is the fact that our over 774 local governments are not fully developed. What we are trying to do is we're going to do the devolution of power. We're going to do resource control. We're going to do revenue, resource control and constitutional amendment, because those are the things that are structures that affects the endemic poverty that we have in Nigeria. Number one, in devolution of power, in the resource control policy that we have, we're looking at, like I mentioned earlier, that we're going to look at each resource that each local government has. Each local government will be given 20%. The 20% of the resource, the monies generated from each local government will be given to the people. 20% will be given to the local government. 20% will be given to the state government, and the 40% will be given. That way, more employment are generated, more monies are going around, more people in China, most families, if you go to each family at the local government level, you'll find out that every person is producing something. The more vibrant the economy is, the better we are able to eradicate poverty. Another aspect that we're going to tackle is education, education is going to help to tackle most of the endemic poverty that we have in Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, ACP and candidates. The value of the Naira has depreciated over time. In fact, at some stage, it dropped so sharply to $520 20 naira to a dollar before recovering, and now we have multiple exchange rates in the country ranging from 305 naira to 364 naira per dollar. What policies or initiatives do you intend to pursue to bring the forex market into equilibrium and reduce this misalignment?
Thank you. We are in a global village. The world is now a global village. And the level of production going on in the country determines the strength or otherwise of the currency of the country. If much are not going on in the economy of that state, please forget it. Because as it is, Nigeria does not have the capacity to determine the rate at which the naira is exchanged for other currencies of the world. To ensure a higher value for the naira, we need to look inward. An economy that depends solely for everything to come into the country, for everything to be imported, it's not a serious economy. And until something is done to reverse the trend, what we do is just to look inward, to ensure that whatever we can produce locally, we don't import it. Whatever we can produce locally, we don't import it. Then we look at the economy to engineer it, to make sure that the economy works. For instance, in the petroleum sector, what we do currently is to import all our PMS needs. This will be reversed. We will make sure that even if we at the moment does not have the capacity to refine and sell out, our government will do something to make sure that we add value to the product that you are selling out. That will create jobs. And in the regulation, what we do is to create the enabling environment and support the private sector to be able to drive the economy. As it is, the value of the naira is low because foreign direct investments are not coming. And until something is done to make sure, to give confidence to the international system.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll be going on a very short break. And when we return, we'll be talking more about the economy. But please let it be noted that if you have a rebuttal, which you are entitled to any of the points raised by any of the candidates, please indicate and you'll be given the opportunity 1 minute to do so. But that's when we return from this break.
Stand by, please. We're coming back now.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Before we went on that break, we were talking about the opportunity of the candidates to have an opportunity to do a rebuttal. And if you have any clarifications to make, please indicate, and you will have 1 minute. The candidate of the PDP indicated, right, please. Go ahead.
Well, let me clarify again what I said when I said fighting corruption is not an economic policy. It is not that you can't fight corruption, but you can fight it more aggressively while addressing economic issues. For example, in 2015, unemployment and underemployment was 24%. Today it's 40%. In 2015, we attracted $21 billion in foreign direct investment. We attracted only 17 last year. We attracted only 12 last year. That means it's going to, our GDP was 520 in 2015. Our per capita was 2,500. Today it's under 1,900. If you look at our stock market, it's lost over 2 trillion in 1 year. So that is not any policy. You're not creating jobs. You're not doing the right thing, and you're just fighting corruption. You can't shut down your shop and be chasing criminals.
Thank you very much.
By the time you come back,
Thank you. Please. There are rules and guidelines to this debate. You are not allowed to cheer in the audience. You are not allowed to cheer, and you are not allowed to jeer at anyone. Please, let's stick by the rules. Otherwise, we may be forced to remove you from the hall. Please, let's be matured. Thank you. Candidate of the APC.
Thank you very much. Let me say also that if you allow criminals to steal all the inventory in the shop, there will be no shop. That's the problem.
Please.
That's the problem.
Please.
And what has happened to Nigeria in the past 16 years is what the World Bank told us, that the major cause of our poverty is corruption. That's a major cause. That's what we've been told. So let me say that there is no way that we can minimize what has happened. We can't minimize corruption. If you minimize it, we run the risk of completely, in fact, the argument is lost. We cannot do what we want to do unless we're able to minimize corruption or eradicate it completely, which is what we're trying to do. I want to rebut the question about our debt figures. Frankly, I know that the candidate of PDP knows very well.
Unfortunately, sir, your time is up. Okay. And let me again say that each time you cheer or jeer, you reduce the time of each candidate. And that time is very valuable, is very vital for him or her to make the necessary points. Please, let us reduce completely eliminate the cheering and jeering. Please. The next question is a common question for all the candidates. In 2016, when there was a major adjustment in the price of petroleum products from 87 naira to 145 naira, Nigerians reluctantly accepted this price hike in the understanding that this was going to be the last and that the word petroleum subsidy will be banished from the Nigerian government's lexicon. Now we hear of subsidy again. What is any of you going to do differently to put this problem to bed? Candidate of the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria. 2 minutes.
Subsidy. That has been the greatest opinion that the resources of this nation have been frittered away. What our government in power will do is to do away with subsidy. You do away with subsidy. Firstly, there are a lot of inefficiency in the system. The PMF, the petroleum importers, sometimes it's round-tripping. They do round-tripping. In addition to this, there is no effectiveness in it. And let me tell you, by continuing with subsidy, we are killing the economy of this country and we are killing the people. We are doing away, our government in power, by the grace of God, will do away with subsidy. What we do is to deregulate the sector. In a situation where you fix prices, you are indirectly telling people not to come, because nobody will bring a capital into a venture that is not profitable. If petroleum product, if our crude petroleum is deregulated, there are international investors and local investors that will come to this country to come and establish industry, thereby creating so much job for our people. SCPN government in power will deregulate the petroleum sector. Because subsidy is not even in the interest of the common man. Some of us will have as many as 20, 30 cars. What are the common people on the street? The poor peasant farmers, what are they benefiting from this? Some of them don't even have a bicycle. the subsidy regime only favors the rich. And any policy or program of government that does not favor the poor and the common man of the street, I think should be do away with it. We will do away with subsidy so that we can create jobs massively.
Thank you very much
for our people.
Thank you. Candidate of the ANN.
Yes. Good evening, sir. Subsidy in Nigeria is fraught with corruption. And if transparency is being applied to the excess money being gotten from the balance of the subsidy, is going to tackle a lot of problems that has fraught the nation. What we're big on in Alliance for New Nigeria is the fact that, number one, we'll attack the institutions to ensure that there's enough transparency, there's enough technological issues, technological GPS that is being upgraded to ensure that every kind of corruption is tackled. If subsidy is being eliminated, what we want to do in Alliance for when it comes to is to, number one, diversify the economy, which I've mentioned before. If we're able to diversify the economy and stop the dependency of on oil products, we'll have little or no problem at all with subsidy. And once we are able to get the residue of the subsidy, we're using it to also do the four important things that we've always talked about, talking about restructuring of our infrastructure. We're talking about ensuring that most of these excesses are being allocated to various structures like education, health, healthcare system, and all, talking about the complete overall of the civil service system. So subsidy is not something that it's something that we tackle properly.
Thank you.
Yes.
Candidate of the APC.
Thank you very much. I think the major problem with subsidies are just the abuses that can attend a subsidy. A subsidy is not inherently a bad thing. It's really the abuses. And I'll explain very quickly. Now, what happened under the old subsidy regime was that several independent marketing companies would simply come in and say, we delivered 5 cargoes of PMS, whereas they delivered nothing or delivered only 1. And so they made the subsidy in the difference. Today, it is the NNPC that's the sole importer of petroleum, so it is on the balance sheet of the NNPC that the subsidy is being taken. Now, let me say also that if today you were to remove subsidies, petrol prices could go up to as high as 220 naira per liter, could even go higher. Now, there is no country in the world, at least even the most developed countries, that don't run one kind of subsidy regime or the other. For the simple reason that sometimes you just need to take some of that effect, some of the cost effect away from your citizens. So, for example, America subsidizes agriculture, subsidizes production, subsidizes all sorts of things. Now, if you have a petrol subsidy, and I'm not saying that it must be there forever, but if you have the petrol subsidy, it helps. Because the moment you remove the subsidy, prices go up. We experienced it earlier on in the regime. Prices went up from 86 to 145 naira per liter. And then there was cost-push inflation. Transportation prices go up, food prices go up, even rents go up. Everything goes up. While consumer spending is weak, and while we're trying to develop the economy and develop the capacity of the people to spend money, I think that a subsidy, at least a minimal subsidy, is useful now. And that's why I think that the subsidy regime is one that we can tolerate, but obviously we must remove it as time goes on. But we can't remove it immediately. Otherwise, we'll suffer the consequence.
Thank you very much. Candidate of the PDP.
Well, what we are subsidizing today is inefficiency. If you get it right, the price will still come down. There's no way a country can have a budget of 340 billion naira for health, which translates to 5 naira a day for its citizens, and then pay 1 trillion for subsidy. There's no way you can have an education budget, which is the most critical component of your development, at 400 and something billion, and you're paying subsidy of $1 trillion. It is a waste. You need to reverse it, because you're not paying, they're not dealing with the engine that will drive your economy tomorrow. Everybody knows that even petroleum itself is a baggage economy. At the time people are developing a new economy, and then you're not paying attention to that. What are you actually subsidizing? Look at it. Nigeria has one of the low car ownership in the world. It's 10 per thousand. So we have only 2 million vehicles, and you're paying almost $1 trillion when you have 87 million people that are poor. You can't do that. It's totally, you need to reverse it. And I can tell you, if you do the right things, the price will come down, because you're just paying for the delay in importation, the number of time cargoes stay in the port, and everything. We can't continue to pay for inefficiency in this country. I can tell that you can remove it, do the right things, the price of petroleum will come down.
Thank you very much. Candidate of the YPP.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Well, we've never been in government before, but the people that are presently and those that were have said a lot about the subsidy. I could remember during Jonathan, when subsidy was removed, Nigeria was shut down. We were all out, which leads to a lot of things now. And along the line, during the early regime of President Muhammadu Buhari, still subsidy is removed. And Nigerians were so patient, thinking that we are going to achieve something. So I think you throw a question to us, but I don't think, as I'm standing here today, have much to contribute, but to throw it to Nigerians. There was subsidy removal and still subsidy removal, and nothing has been done. I still had them saying they are still paying subsidy, and the lives of Nigerians have not improved, and we've not seen anything substantial or something tangible on the ground. So to be candid, subsidy to a typical Nigerian is just a scam. That's how I will call it, the way President Buhari once said it in the newspaper. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's no rebuttal. Okay.
My rebuttal is simply this, that the question to ask the Nigerian is how much we're prepared to pay for petrol. That's the question. Because if you say to a Nigerian, remove subsidy or not remove subsidy, you hide the fundamental question. The fundamental question is, are you ready to take a 40 naira increase in petrol prices today? We say no. We say that the average Nigerian cannot tolerate that price increase. That's what subsidy is about. That's what it's about today.
All right. Yes.
Yeah, my rebuttal is still on the issue of subsidy. There are so many things that we can do with the removal, with the subsidy that will be removed from petrol. For instance, AGO, diesel, is now, it has been removed from the list of subsidy. Likewise, kerosene that are mostly being used by the poor. The markets of supply and demand will eventually regulate it if the subsidy is removed. And let me tell you, there are so many critical sectors that the subsidy regime can be deployed to. The agricultural sector is there. In farming, there are so many things we can do. Now there's crisis between farmers and cattle rearers. These people are not getting any attention from the government. Subsidy, that if it is removed, the whole sum of money that is being wasted on a daily basis can be used to deploy.
Thank you. Your time is up. Candidate of the ANN.
I was going to say almost the same kind of things that he said about the issue of demand and supply to affecting subsidy, because I know that once subsidy is removed, there are excess for the government, and all the monies that are derived from those excesses can be used accordingly. But my problem is, what is the government presently doing with the amount of money that has been the subsidy that has been removed, the remnants of the money, that what is the government doing with it right now? Because it is not like what he said, it's not affecting the common man. We don't know what is going on. So that is my question.
All right, thank you very much. Let me come back to the candidate of the YPP. The gross domestic product, GDP, performance recovered slightly in the third quarter of this year to 1.81%. From 1.5% in the second quarter. The target under the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, that's the ERGP, is 3%, but it has reached 1.81%. Now, this is interpreted as an evidence that we are still dealing with a very fragile growth of the economy. What needs to be done?
Thank you very much. No country will grow if its export is higher, if its import is higher than its export. The main thing I think Nigeria needs to do is to put emphasis on production. That's the industrial sector, which our presidency, by the grace of God, is going to bring in to this country. Because if at all we will invest on our youth, we intend to create a 1 trillion venture capital fund that we will inject into the youth and small-scale and large-scale industry in partnership with the private sector to see how we can impact the lives of a typical Nigerian, whereas every Nigerian can be an employer of labor, and this will definitely grow the economy and will lift the level of our GDP. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Candidate of the PDP. Now, the Nigerian economy as of today is still heavily dependent on the oil sector for its foreign exchange earnings and for other revenue. Now, what is or what will be your strategy for economic diversification? Because we have talked, government after government have talked about diversification of the economy. But each time we have seen not real effort at diversification. What will be your government's strategy?
You just said it, there's no real effort in doing that. You have to look at the components of your contribution of various sectors to your GDP. And if you look at it, one component needs to be tackled: manufacturing. No country that is doing well, if you look at the GDP of China, 40% is from manufacturing. Indonesia, 40%. Malaysia, 40%. Even in the Western world, yours is under 8, and your factories are closing down. So you need to reverse that and you need to support your SMEs properly, not just saying, I will support them, but to do it more efficiently. You can look at your loan portfolios. Today, the total loans by the banks is 19 trillion, and only 0.5%, about 5%, 0.5% of that goes to your SMEs. When in other countries, it's about 20%. So there's no way, if you can support the SMEs properly and be able to work on your manufacturing, which then leads to you must do something with your power. Because what you're generating today is too low. Look at your competitors. The lowest that you can see in the mint countries is Indonesia, that's generating 50,000 for 250 million people, and you're generating about 4,000 for 200 million.
Thank you very much. We'll go on a short break, and when we return, the candidate of the APC will be taking his turn. Stay with us. Welcome back, and thank you so much for your time. Let me make another appeal to our audience, the studio audience here. Please do not cheer and do not jeer at anyone. In fact, if you do, I will have no choice but to stop the candidate who is speaking and allow you to continue the cheering or jeering, and then after that, he or she will continue. Because you eat into their time when you do that. Thank you very much for respecting the rules and the guidelines of this debate. Thank you. Time now to turn to the candidate of the All Progressives Congress. And with a real GDP growth rate of 1.8% and a population growth rate of 3%, there is an indication that the poverty condition in the country may further deteriorate. What needs to be done? What should be the response?
First, let me say that GDP has grown consistently in the past 6 quarters. It's continued to grow, and it will continue to grow. The trajectory is upwards, clearly. The second thing to note is that we are lending, and because MSMEs are extremely important, small business is extremely important, including petty trading. We are lending the highest ever to small business in Nigeria, beginning with the government enterprises and promotions, and government enterprises and empowerment scheme, where we're doing about 35 billion in the cycle. BOI is doing about another 20 billion. Aside from that, we're obtaining from the AFDB $500 million for entrepreneurship, just entrepreneurship. This is the highest lending ever to the MSME sector. I've been to 20 different states in Nigeria on what we call the MSME clinics. And in every one of those states, what we've done is that we've taken the regulatory agencies to the MSMEs. And we've set up in many of the states, a one-stop shop where the regulatory authorities function. Because one of the chief problems that MSMEs have is access to the regulatory authorities and answers to their various questions. Now that is being done. In addition to that, we've set up shared facilities in several different states. A shared facility is a place where you provide equipment, where you provide machinery that the small business cannot afford. And then the small businesses come and use it and share it. We've also put power. Infrastructure, as I said, is critical. We've put power in markets just so as to be able to encourage small business. In our area market, for example, in Abia State, we now have there a 2 megawatt power plant which just supplies the market aside from solar facilities there. And that's what we've done also in Sabongari Market in Kano and several other places where we put infrastructure. Infrastructure is key to all of these things.
Thank you. Candidate of the ANN. Now, if you are elected as the Vice President of Nigeria, you will be the chairman of the National Economic Council. What kind of policy collaboration will you pursue with state governments to ensure the progress of the Nigerian economy?
So we have 4 cardinal R's in Alliance for New Nigeria, which is to reduce the cost of governance, to restructure every economic leeway, which includes the SMEs. Right now, the President, Vice President talked about how they have the SME clinics. Most Nigerians have not felt the impact of these policies. What we are going to do in Alliance for New Nigeria is to ensure that every SME, the biggest problem of an SME is tax. To get a free tax cut for at least 3 years, and also to ensure that to at least ensure that all the SMEs have some, depending on the kind of business that you're doing, you have all the regulatory issues, all the bureaucracy that to operate in Nigeria as an SME will be curtailed. We also have the issue, the second R is the restructuring. Okay, the third R is the reforming of all ambits of economic policies that drives the economic hub, where what we are planning is to expand economic opportunities by building special economic zones in different zones in Nigeria, which would include the issue of the issues that we highlighted earlier on about the commercial hubs, which will reduce the bureaucracy of going to export it, also having the hubs around. We're also going to talk about the third R, which is the reorientation of our minds to ensure that policies of economic
Thank you very much. Candidate of the ACPN. And our businesses in Nigeria complain generally about multiple taxation. What are you going to do differently? How are you going to reduce the burden of multiple taxation for businesses?
Yes, multiple taxation is not good for the growth of businesses. And business owners are usually not happy about it. I'm a businessman too. If you are for burdening me too much, I may be weakened and the business may eventually collapse. We have such a situation in one of the states in this country that industry are packing away to other places due to multiple taxation and tax burdens. What we do is to encourage business people by making sure that we structure the type of taxes in order to that we impose on them, in order to reduce tax burden. And in most cases, to encourage some, especially new businesses that will be coming to the country, to grant tax tariff until the businesses get properly footed. And when you are talking about taxation, you're also talking about economy. We do everything by encouraging the private sector to drive the economy. And we will embrace reform. Because if there's no business, there's nowhere the government will generate, nobody will pay taxation. If you are not doing anything, you can't pay tax. There's a sort of this that our party, the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, is coming on board in this campaign, which we know the crucial issue that will be on the border is the issue of economy and security. We are bringing on board an international economic advisor in the name of Dr. Obi Ezekwesili. He's an expert in economy, he's an expert, and we believe that the issue of economic problems of this country will be analyzed, and she will take Nigeria part to the path of progress and prosperity.
Thank you very much. Any rebuttals on any issue? Candidate of the APC.
Just a quick rebuttal, and that is that we already have pioneer status. For new businesses, you already have a 5-year tax holiday, some between 3 and 5 years. There's also, just to point out to my fellow candidate, that there is also a tax threshold for small businesses. You know, beyond that threshold is when you begin to pay taxes. So some of these tax holidays are already in place, you know, and perhaps they may have other ideas, but these are already in place.
Candidate of the ANN.
Yes, I have. He said they are already in place, but they are not implemented. Because I'm a business person, and I know how much tax that is being demanded from our little company. I'm believing that once you are a small business, you need some kind of relief for the next 1 to 5 years to ensure that you are able to garner some profit from what businesses that you're doing. But every time, all businesses are strangulated because of the tax. The local government area will ask for tax. All kinds of regulatory bodies will come and ask for the state government. The state, if you're like we are operating a bakery in Minna, every time they keep telling us, you have to pay for this board, you have to pay for that. And different kinds of people, because of the corruption, it has affected so many businesses that businesses cannot thrive because of all this. Thank you very much. So we need implementation.
Thank you. Well, let me start from here this time, and let me start with the candidate of the PDP. The African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Nigeria was instrumental in putting that in place, but Nigeria is yet to sign. Would you say that Nigeria should sign and belong to the Continental Economic Bloc? What advantages do you think Nigeria stands to reap from that?
I think Nigeria needs to look at that agreement properly Because actually, if you had built your economy as strong as it should be, we would benefit more. We are the biggest market. Yes, you think about people bringing in their goods here, but considering that the resources of the human resources of this country and the entrepreneurial spirit of the average Nigerian, we would have been able to build facilities, manufacturing facilities that would drive export, not just within Africa. African trade today is less than 9%. And if we get it right, it can go as high as 30% or 40%. The foreign exchange you're saying today you're not earning from oil. Oil line gives you 80% of your foreign exchange, when in effect, if you do the right things, you can have twice that coming from manufacturing. Other countries that don't have anything to do with oil are driving their foreign exchange earning all from manufacturing. So you have to look at the agreement, look at those things we're not doing well here, put them in place, and sign that agreement, because it's going to be a win-win for us. It's just that the manufacturer said, let's look at this. Let's know what is there for us. There's no way you can be part of packaging something and it gets to the stage of signing, you walk out of it. So what were you doing when you were part of packaging, putting it together? It doesn't make sense.
Thank you very much. Candidate of the APC.
Frankly, I thought my colleague of the PDP would say whether to sign or not to sign, But let me just say very quickly that there is a process of consultation which is going on with the private sector. That process is very important because one of the chief fears of the Continental Free Trade Zone, one of the chief fears of it is the possibility of transshipment. Third countries will transship. So, for example, a China can ship its goods to Benin Republic and import to Nigeria under a free trade agreement. So we can have a situation where local industry is killed just by the mere fact that we sign on to this without ensuring that all of the loopholes have been blocked. So we're in the process of ensuring that those loopholes are blocked. The Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN, rejected the Continental Free Trade Zone here, and we're talking to them. Similarly, NACIMA, several of the business bodies, even Industrial and Competitiveness Council, have expressed serious reservations, and we must consult. We are a private sector-driven economy. We cannot just say because we were involved in the process. Every African country was involved in the process. But it's our duty as a responsible government to ensure that we take into account all of the different issues that are involved before we sign. Even trade remedies, even a regime of trade remedies, we have not put in place, the AFCTA has not put in place a sufficient regime of trade remedies. All of these issues have to be taken into account. There's no hurry to rush into signing that agreement. There's no hurry whatsoever. We must make sure that we cover all the bases before we sign. That really is the issue.
Thank you very much. Candidate of the ANN.
So if we're going to, we have to look at all the surrounding circumstances of the agreement before signing. We have the policy to be driven by private sector, like you said, but we, in our own way, we're looking at it in a different way, because once you sign an agreement, you are already completely bounded by it. We have to look at how much that agreement will affect the common man in the street. How much employment will that agreement bring? How will it upgrade the development of our industries, which we're looking at diversifying? How would it also affect the GDP that we're looking to expand? So in that agreement, we'll sit down and ensure that there is provision for employment, where issues of employment, because a lot of times we see that the Chinese government are coming in, and they are coming in with all their people, most of their people to come and work, without taking cognizance that we have a lot of people who are unemployed in Nigeria. So what we will do as a party in our government is to ensure that everybody is taken care of, because we also want to collaborate with other parties, other countries. We want to encourage free trade zone. We'll also look at how much that agreement will affect our local industries. If it's going to help us, if it's going to be like an exchange, it's important for us to look at it carefully before signing. And it has to be in alliance, it has to be in tandem with what our general policies stand for in our government.
Thank you very much. Candidate of the ACPN.
Well, I thank God that the sitting government has not signed the agreement, because the agreement will not be in the interest of this country. And I say so because presently, so much is not going on in our economy, especially in our industries. And any program or policy that will turn Nigeria into a dumping ground for goods from other countries and cripple the local industries would not be in the interest of us. It is a good thing that as brothers that will trade with each other, but are we going to get equal advantage from them? Now, most of our industries that were most of the industries that were formerly based in this country are relocated to Benin, Togo, and some other neighboring countries. So what will it benefit Nigeria with the highest population and a very big market in Africa? I think the proper thing is for Nigerian government to put the signing of the agreement on hold until the economy of this country improves and our manufacturer industries are thriving.
Thank you very much. Candidate of YPP.
Thank you very much. As where Nigeria is standing today, I don't think it's a wise decision to go sign in such kind of agreement. We have advantage of population. If at all, Nigeria today will try to inject some funds. Let's even start with the state level, where each and every state in Nigeria, let's not even talk about the natural resources. You can see that each and every state in Nigeria have something, one thing or the other that they are producing that's different from what we used to have all over the world. If at all we will inject some amount or some investment into such kind of businesses or such kind of creativity into each and every state, definitely we will get what we want, but that's when the country will be very, very strong into production. That's when such kind of policies will favor Nigeria. But not at this stage we are, where Nigeria doesn't produce much and our export activity is very, very low. Thank you very much.
Yes, candidate of the PDP.
Thank you very much. Like I said before, our government will be demand-driven, not supply-driven. That means you need to consult the people. Be at the stage of planning, not at the stage of signing. You say, oh, well, we need to go and consult the people. We will do it before we get to that stage. Two, you don't need to fear about China's transshipment. That shows inefficiency. Labor is more expensive in China today than it is in Nigeria. In fact, we have 87 million people who don't have jobs. So if goods that are manufactured in China can leave China and you pay the high shipment, including duty clearing, and it's cheaper than what you manufacture, something is wrong here. So you fix it. And look at it, let me just give you an example. Just Apapa, to bring our goods in Apapa, costs more than it costs to bring the goods from Europe to here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Transport.
Thank you. Yes. Candidate of the APC.
Yes, I think my rebuttal is simple. Question really is that the Continental Free Trade Area has been negotiated for years. The negotiation started even under the previous government. So the question of consultation or not consultation and when it ought to have taken place really could have taken place many years ago when they started these negotiations. Second point is that labor is not the only factor of production. It's not the only cost. So the mere fact that labor is cheaper in Nigeria than China doesn't mean that goods produced in Nigeria will be cheaper than China. What is going on today, for example, is that if you import rice from China, it will still be cheaper because a lot of their rice is stored up there and is heavily subsidized as well, just as from America. Second point is that we still have issues around power. Power is a major cost. That's one of the reasons why we're investing so heavily in transmission and generation and trying our best to do with distribution. So there are many other costs. It's not just about labor. I mean, if you talk about labor, that's just one single cost. There are so many other costs.
Thank you.
Dumping is a major issue.
Thank you very much. Let me stay with you, candidate of the APC. Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria is very passionate about 41 items that have been excluded from the forex market. Only recently, another item, fertilizer, was added. Is it a good policy in your view?
Well, let me say, first of all, that the Central Bank of Nigeria is independent in terms of its own activities, and I really cannot change or not change their policies. But let me say to you that just take some of the examples. Toothpicks, for example, have been imported into Nigeria. Fertilizer, which we have now cracked with the collaboration we have with Morocco, we are now able to deliver fertilizer at half the cost. So you have fertilizer now as some 6,000, 7,000. At some point, it was about 12,000, 13,000, even higher. So you can no longer do that. And rice is also another example. We were importing practically all of our rice. As I said, $5 million of rice every single day. Today, we're no longer doing so. We've encouraged local production by preventing a situation where anybody can simply go and buy rice. And simply go and open a FOMEM and bring in rice. So if you're going to protect local industry, if you're going to protect local activity, then you need to do something like what you may need to do something, such as what the CBN is doing. Final point on that is that where you have a situation such as we have today, these 41 items, it is not a ban on those items. All that the CBN is saying is you can't come to us for foreign exchange. You can go and source your foreign exchange wherever you want, but you can't come to the CBN for foreign exchange for these items where they believe, which they believe can be produced locally. So that really is the point.
Thank you very much. Candidate of the ANN. Nigeria is perhaps the only oil-producing country in the world today that imports petroleum products. This is because our refineries are not performing optimally. Our refineries are not performing optimally, and so we have to export crude and import refined products. What would you do as Vice President or your government if you get elected? Would you build new refineries or would you privatize the ones that we have now?
Now, like I said the last time, is that we're going to heavily invest in a PPP kind of government, which is a private-public partnership. So we're grateful that at least right now we have one Nigeria that is trying to upgrade, is trying to build refineries. I don't see why, as a country, if the systems are well developed and the processes are strengthened, why we should be bringing in petroleum when we are the ones that have all that. What we should be looking at is building more refineries in the country, expanding on those, and asking the private sector to get involved. Also asking international communities to collaborate with us on how to ensure that the petroleum sector is well strengthened. And also the infrastructure aspect of building the refineries, ensuring that the huge transparency cloud ICT system will be encouraged, so that all the processes and the systems will be transparent enough for everybody to see what's going on, for the common man to know what is going on in the petroleum sector. Right now, a lot of things are not being transparent, and we don't know. But what we want to do differently is to ensure that more refineries are built, more PPP are established, and also to ensure that the diversification, we should not depend at all on petroleum. We should diversify our economy in agriculture, in ensuring that we have more industry, and so on and so forth.
Candidate of the ACPN, some experts have suggested that what is required is a concessioning of some critical infrastructure or sectors of the economy. For instance, the refineries, and even in the aviation sector. What will be the agenda of the ACPN when it comes to power as far as concessioning of critical infrastructure is concerned?
Well, I have said this earlier, that one of the cardinal principles of the ACPN, as contained in our manifesto, is to bring reforms. And the reforms will be in the petroleum sector and other sectors where the government is the major stakeholders. You see, the attitude of Nigerians to public enterprises are nothing to write home about. We have 4 refineries, none of them is working. And they are due to human factors. And if you continue to do this thing, people will live for people to continue to be vulnerable. What we do is to hands off the interest of government in all the federal government businesses so that they can be handed over to investors. In that way, if you have your own business, you monitor it jealously to make sure that you are making profit. So you do it to make profit. If it is government business, in Nigeria, government business is not anybody's business. So in the reform that we are going to do in the critical sector of the Nigerian economy, all business interests of the government will be privatized, and we will encourage people, we encourage our people and investors. We are necessary, even with funds and partnership, to make sure that services are provided for our people at minimal cost.
Thank you very much. Candidate of the YPP, what would be the major economic thrust of your party, or if you get elected, as far as the aviation sector is concerned?
Well, we know that those days we used to have Nigerian Airways, which were very one of the largest airlines in the world. And today, African countries like Egypt, Ethiopia, and others have taken that away from us. The major thing a typical Nigerian needs to get to look into is to see how we can rekindle patriotism into our hearts. Because all these things, we have them in abundance. We have the manpower, we have the resources to fix those things. I think recently we had the news that we're all overjoyed that there will be a kind of the bringing back or the awakening of the Nigerian Airways, which we're all joyful about. But as time goes on, we don't know what happened to it. So to be candid, what Nigeria just needs is patriotic leaders, leaders that have Nigeria at heart. This is just what I will say about the aviation sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Candidate of the PDP, let me take you to the ICT sector. It is one of the fastest growing in the world today, and the power of ICT to transform the economy is not in doubt. What will your government do as far as the ICT sector is concerned?
Well, you're talking about investment in education, in STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics education. That is the future. I've said it before that the more you invest in education, the better your economy. So we'll aggressively invest in education. I have done this even as a governor of a state, where I took a state from being number 28 to number 1. Because we know the value of education. I was the first to buy and equip all our schools with ICT. I understand what that is all about. Go to HP, I bought the highest computer ever bought by a government in Africa, 30,000. So I know the value. I know what it is today. Just look at one simple thing. The economy of Nigeria is $420 billion. South Africa is 280, that's 700. Egypt, that is number 3, is 250, 950. When Apple market capitalization is 1 trillion. So you need to invest in that. And it's shown clearly in the world that in 2020, you have 25 million STEM jobs available in the world. We will take ICT serious. We will invest in it. That's why I said you can't continue doing subsidy when you need to invest money in the future. You're driving yesterday. If you continue to do what we're doing, You are investing in yesterday. Those who think about yesterday and today will miss tomorrow. We need to invest in tomorrow. And I will invest in ICT aggressively. That's what our government will do. And I'm sure that's what Atiku will do.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any rebuttals on any of the issues?
Well, just to say that with respect to technology, we're not talking about what we will do, we're talking about what we are doing. And what we are doing is that we're investing very heavily in technology. At the moment, we've set up 6 technology hubs in the 6 geopolitical zones. Those technology hubs are being funded mainly by the federal government. Some of them are part funded. STEM education is critical, and as you know, we've done the curriculum, which is not just STEM, it's actually STEAM, it includes arts, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, which is very crucial. And we're looking, and we've also invested heavily, even here in Abuja, in 5 model classrooms for technology. We're looking at what to do for technology training and how to make technology training available for everyone. We set up a technology advisory group, which brings in all technology. Okay.
Thank you very much. At this point in time, we'll go on a break, and when we return, we'll be talking a lot more about the economy and business environment in Nigeria. Stay with us. Welcome back. All right, let's turn to the candidate of the Alliance for New Nigeria. Wow. The Nigerian economy today is still burdened by the problems of power supply. Okay. Now, specifically, if you are elected to government, how many megawatts of power do you think your government can generate per year?
Right now, we are right now we have the prepaid meter what we are having in government right now is prepaid, and still Nigerians are not feeling the impact of what we have presently. We want to generate, aside from the 4 hydroelectric and gas and all those things that we have, we want to diversify the power sector. We want to upgrade the megawatt to more than the present numbers that we have. We want to ensure that we have maximum demand. We want to ensure that the prepaid meter and maximum demand meters for all government and ministries, department, agencies understand what it means to understand the essence of power in governance. So what we are upgrading the present level of power supply down. We expand, we use innovation to also bring about the new systems of power diversification that we're trying to do, aside from the present one that we have, because we know that the megawatt is not enough for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. A candidate of the ACPN, the Ajaokuta Steel Company has got over $10 billion in the last 30 years. Now, what is your plan for this very critical infrastructure?
The issue of Ajaokuta has been there for a very long time. And it has been fraught with corruption, serious corruption. And now a drain pipe to the nation's economy. Ajaokuta could have been one of the major big industry that could have set the stage for the progress and development of this country. Just last week, I think I read in one of the papers that the Senate has approved about $1 billion to be injected into Ajaokuta Steel Rolling Company. Despite the several billions that has been stuck into it up to now, the government is not benefiting anything from it. I think what we do what our government in power will do is to look into the issue of Ajaokuta steel rolling mill critically, so as to be able to find a lasting solution to it. This is a major economic something for our nation. What we do is to advertise and for people to do a competitive bidding, so that we can pick the best company that has the capacity to turn the industry around, so that still the steel rolling mill can be brought back to life.
Thank you very much, candidate of the YPP. The steel rolling mills in Nigeria are all, as it were, not working to capacity. And this is also a function of the fact that the Ajaokuta Steel Company has been down for several years after so much has been spent. What do you think is the way forward?
Well, the way forward to fixing the steel industry in Nigeria is, initially I could remember I read about the plan to fix it, but I just don't know so what's happening, why it's not being fixed. But we intend to invest and bring in investors, because I know right now in Nigeria we have a lot of Chinese that are into business, but they're into that very business, especially in my northern part of the country. But we still need investors, and we still need to partner with local interested people to see how we can be also part of this business and how we can generate funds to go into this sector. And the second thing, I'm very sure I heard somebody talking about why the steel company is not working, it's still power issue. So I think we need to rekindle still patriotism into the hearts of Nigeria to see how we can cripple the generator mafias, because I'm very sure by defeating such, Nigeria will have power supply and most of our industry today will be at work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, candidate of the PDP. Nigeria's ease of doing business ranking is currently at 146 out of 190 countries, and there's been an improvement in recent times, yet this is not a very good ranking for our country and for our economy. What will you do to improve the ease of doing business if you get elected?
Well, first to look at where your competitors are. If I belong to the BRICS nations, where are they? If I belong to the MINT nations, where are they? If you look at all the rankings, they are just below 100 and you're 146. So it's not good for you to compete. And what are you going to do that? I keep saying that government needs to move out of business and do the right things. There's so many things you can do. Let me take the issue of port, for example. Nigerian Ports Authority, for years, looked at the expansion that is coming and everything, and decided not to invest. Instead, we're using money wrongly. Nigerian Ports Authority is the only port in the world that has an office, even guest house, outside this country of operation. They have a guest house in London. And that is the problem. You're not investing money in the business. And the reason why they're not investing money in the business is that the source of their money, is the waste that is in government continues to drive their process. So you need to get these things to be more efficient by allowing them to get their money from the capital market. If the money they are using to operate today is from the capital market, they will become more efficient because they have monies, loans that they need to pay back. They need new managers, and banks will be after them.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Candidate of the APC.
Can I rebut before I...
Yes.
Can I rebut?
Please go ahead. 1 minute.
I thought the candidate of the PDP will at least acknowledge that while under the PDP, we fell 64 places down on the World Bank Index. Under us, we've moved 24 spaces in 18 months, 24 places up in the ease of doing business. The second thing is, if you say investments haven't taken place in years, who has been in office these last 16 years? Isn't it just incredible? Isn't it just incredible how it is possible to keep a straight face and talk about all that has gone wrong. Why this country is where we are today, and why we're where we are today is because of 16 years of mismanagement of resources. That's the problem. That's why that's why we're here today. That's why. So all these investments ought to have been done. We're investing in infrastructure now with 60% less. We're investing in infrastructure, 60% less. We're doing far more with less. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. Our port is 38. Our port is supposed to be taking 38 million metric tons.
Thank you very much.
It's doing 83 at the moment.
Thank you. So, let me say here that this is not an altercation between two parties. You have the opportunities for rebuttal. Let me come to your question, and that is also related to the ease of doing business. And that's about how to attract more foreign direct investments. If you get re-elected, what would you do differently from what you have done in the last 3.5 years?
I think
to attract more direct foreign investment to the Nigerian economy.
Certainly, what we intend to do is to build on what we're doing. That's why we're talking about the next level. We need to build on what we're doing. At the moment, we moved 24 places up in the ease of doing business. It means, of course, that even internationally, it's been accepted that we're one of the top 10 reforming economies in the world. That's the World Bank report. So what we really need to do is to build on that. And we're doing exactly that. One of the issues with foreign direct investment, of course, is in creating the environment. Power. We need to improve power, which is one of the critical issues for us, which we're doing, improving transmission assets, improving distribution assets. At the moment, we have improved transmission assets by 2,000 megahertz. So where we inherited 5,000 megahertz of delivery on transmission, we are now able to do 7,000 megahertz of delivery on transmission. And we need to keep improving. We need to improve our railroads. Because, for example, if you look at the Lagos-Kano rail, it starts from the ports, from the Apapa ports, so that goods can be taken out of the Apapa ports out into the hinterland. So we need to improve road infrastructure. We need to improve rail infrastructure, which is what we're doing. So the critical investments that need to be made in infrastructure are being made now because today you have a prudent government. You have a government that is ensuring that grand corruption is not allowed so that the resources available to us are being invested in the economy. That's how come we can invest 5 times more than when we were earning $100 a barrel or $114 a barrel. So that's the thing. We will simply focus on what we're doing and improve the infrastructure. Once you improve the infrastructure, foreign investments will come. We'll also create the environment for local industry. That's one of the critical issues for us, creating the environment for local industry. And we're creating that environment already for local industry by all of the steps we're taking, entry and exit of ports. We're doing all of that, looking at the taxation regime.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Now, we're on the home stretch now, and we must quickly take a question each on foreign policy. The ANN. Foreign policy. I mean, he said that Nigeria's foreign policy has hardly changed for decades. What do you think is the right foreign policy for Nigeria at this stage of our development and in a changing global environment?
Because of one of the R's that we have in ANN about reforming the foreign policies that we presently have. What we're doing differently is to ensure that every kind of collaboration that has been existing before will change. We want to do foreign policies on healthcare service delivery, foreign policies on education, foreign policies on security. What is being one of the problems that has happened to us, that we have a lot of proliferation of issues on insecurities because we've not tightened up the knots on our foreign policy matters. We've not done enough to ensure that this aspect of our system is adequately taken care of. Now we have people coming in from the border side coming in from the small towns like the Chad basins, the Chad area, the Cameroon area with arms. What has the present government done about this proliferation of arms and this, which is causing a lot of conflicts within our communities, killing our people and all that? What we are going to do differently is to ensure that there's homeland security, which will ensure that all the military security agencies have an information system sharing, which everybody will ensure that everybody coming into our communities, we are well aware of. There will be sharing of information and ensuring that our borders are secured. And having the fact that right now, what I feel is that government is not doing enough to ensure that places we have given.
Thank you. Candidate of the ACPN, what would be the foreign policy thrust of your government if you get elected?
The foreign policy of the government of the ACPN would be one that would be of mutual benefit to our country and to the countries of the world. This is because the world is a global village. We tend to share advice, we share expertise, we share so many things together. What our government will do is that the relationship we will have with other people, especially in trade, will be the one that our country will benefit from. Then also in security, it has been very difficult for this country to get supplies of the required machinery to combat the Boko Haram menace and other security matters that we have that is staring our country in the face. We will ensure that we build our relationship with countries that are experts in all this machinery so that they will have confidence that the equipment they will be selling to Nigeria will be used for the purpose for which it was required. Then also we will have relations with our neighboring countries because we are brothers. Whatever is affecting Nigeria negatively will obviously affect countries like Cameroon, Niger, Chad, and other West African countries that are bordering the Nigerian territory. So to fight Boko Haram successfully and other insurgents, I think we will require collaboration of all these countries so that if they fight to a stage and the Boko Haram fighters are receding, there will be attack from other countries.
Thank you.
Things that cannot be done alone, we try and see how other countries do.
Thank you very much. Candidate of the YPP.
Thank you very much. Professor Kingsley Moghalu has served in the CBN for good 5 years, and his performance there can never be overemphasized. He was part of setting such policies that during his time, there was an economic meltdown that affected a lot of countries in this world. But Nigeria was not directly affected then due to the good work of his team. So I'm very sure Professor Kingsley Moghalu has a very good plan for Nigeria to set a very good foreign policies that will suit our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Candidate of the PDP, what will be the party's foreign policy thrust?
Well,
will Africa still be the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy?
It will remain so. Because I believe that we're first Africans and we have a lot to gain and to offer Africa. And while dealing with other nations, making sure that our relationship is beneficial to our country and brings a lot of value in terms of security, in terms of our economic turnaround and everything that will help us to create jobs and help us to see that it will be a win-win situation. Not a situation where we now go around all over the world borrowing. We would go more to learn about what they're doing, because I believe that what they are doing will be more valuable to us to implement here than a situation where we're almost going to borrow everything from China.
Thank you very much. Candidate of the APC.
Yes.
Now, having drawn the government for 3.5 years, what is it that you think you need to do differently as far as foreign policy is concerned?
I think the major focus of our foreign policy is and will remain the economy and security. So, for example, in trade, on trade issues, we're extremely vigilant. We just set up a trade office, a trade negotiations office, which had never been in existence, so that we're able to enter into fair trade agreements with everyone else. And that accounts for some of the work we're doing on the AFCTA. Also, some of the economic partnership agreements that we're supposed to have signed with Europe, with the European Union. These are the sorts of issues that we're looking at. We're saying, for instance, that we cannot sign those EPAs as they are currently because we're looking out for the economic interests of Nigeria in our foreign relations. Second, of course, is security. One of the points that's been made is that we will cooperate with our neighbors. Indeed, that is what is going on at the moment. The multinational the Islamic State of West Africa and all of that. So clearly, what our foreign policy will be, and continue to be, is our emphasis on the economy, our emphasis on security. All of our friends, whether they are in the West or whether they are Africans, we will judge their relationship with us on the basis of how beneficial they are to our economy and to our security.
Thank you very much. Now you have an opportunity to make your closing statement, 1 minute each, not more than 1 minute. Your closing statement.
Thank you. Just to implore Nigerians that we are at a critical stage in the life of this country, and that we should open our eyes and vote, and Nigerians should vote for candidates based on the manifesto that they are presenting to them. That Nigerian economy now is vulnerable, and can collapse anytime. We need an expert, somebody who knows how to turn things around, to fix things, so that Nigeria can be taken back to the path of progress and prosperity. That Nigerians should please vote for the CPN, for a change. We are sure of the reforms that we wanted to bring. We should not be afraid to reform. And that if we vote for a party, Nigeria will be better for all of us.
Thank you very much. Candidate of the ANN.
Fellow Nigerians, the decisions we have to make in 2019 is whether we want more of the last 4 years or a departure from the last 4 years. We all have experienced firsthand the pains of the last 4 years brought upon us by a cabal that runs the government. What Nigeria needs is freedom from this bondage called the cabal. And what we offer in ANN is to ensure that a new Nigeria is birthed, a new Nigeria where you can have opportunities for all to pursue your own happiness, a new Nigeria where we want the ANN is committed to that new Nigeria. And we are happy that with the 4 cardinal principles that we have in reducing the cost of governance, in reforming our civil services and institutions, in restructuring our economic base, in reorienting all these.
Thank you very much.
We are committed to reorienting the minds of our people.
Candidate of the APC.
God bless Nigeria.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Nigeria is where it is today because of 16 years of misrule. The first thing to say is that, will I be allowed? The first thing to say is that poverty in 2004 in Nigeria was 80 million. As of 2014, it went to 112 million in Nigeria. What we set out to do from 2015 was to reduce that poverty and contain it. That's why we set up a social investment program of 500 billion naira, despite the fact that we were earning 60% less. What we've tried to do in the past 4 years is to redress the damage that had been done. We intend, and what we've done in that past 4 years, first of all, is to prevent the leakages, the corruption that brought us to where we were.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. Candidate of the PDP.
Let me start first by thanking Nigerians, and secondly, thanking my dear wife for his support, especially in this particular journey. And also to remind Nigerians that Atiku Obi presidency is about making Nigeria work again, because Nigeria is not working today. We are in a situation where 4 years ago, on March 26, 2015, our president said to us, if I fail to deliver, choose your leader. The question is, have they delivered? Today we have a situation where our president told our children that are drowning in the sea, they're on their own. Those children are not on their own. We will care for them. We will look for them. We will ensure that that vulcanizer who needs power gets power.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Candidate of the YPP, please. Candidate of YPP, your closing remarks.
My fellow Nigerians, we have had a very long night.
Please give our audience, please.
You've listened to all of us tonight, and Nigerians are wiser. They are not the Nigerians of yesterday. I'm very sure you will judge who is here sincerely to offer you something new, to give you back your Nigeria. We are here today to call on the 84 million voters, which are mainly young women and men, to come out and vote for their choices. During 2015 election, we were left with no choice. But today, Gilfo Magalu ticket is the option we're giving to Nigerians to come back and retrieve their Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We'd like to thank all our candidates who have made it here today. The candidate of the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, Ganiyu Galadima, thank you so much. Candidate of the Alliance for New Nigeria, ANN, Khadija Abdullahi Iya, thank you so much. Candidate of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Professor Yemi Oshibajo. Candidate of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, Peter Obi. And candidate of the Young Progressive Party, YPP, Umar Abdullahi Gesso. Thank you. We will now take the national anthem, and please, after the national anthem, we appeal to the candidates to remain standing behind their desks. The national anthem, please. Thank you very much. Please listen to this. Please listen to this. Remain seated. Please remain seated. Nobody should come to the stage. Nobody should come to the stage at this point in time. Remain seated where you are, or if you choose to stand, remain standing. We will be presenting certificates to the candidates, and they will be having a group photograph. Thank you, and please do not step forward if you are not required here. Thank you. We are doing that in alphabetical order. First is the candidate of the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, ACPN, Ganiyu Galadima. Okay. You need to move. Next is the candidate of the Alliance for New Nigeria, ANN, Khadija Abdullahi Iya. The candidate of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is next. The candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Peter Obi. The candidate of the Young Progressives Party, YPP, Umar Abdullahi Getso.
Hello. Thank you very much, everyone. Can we please, as we're still seated, we'll take photographs.
Please remain seated.
Please,
do not
let's
come
be seated.
to the stage, please.
The Nigerian Election Debate Group will be having photographs. Please, let's remain seated.
You've been watching the vice presidential debate organized by the Nigerian